So glad you're here showing some love in the
Yeah,
month of love to our friends and family here. Thank you, Kelly.
I'm glad to be here. I think what I'm going to have to do, Davey, though, is to give my husband that intro and tell him Valentine's Day's coming, and he's going to have to top that one. So now that there's some, yeah, seriously.
I do speech right for husbands at times. That is another side hustle.
If anybody needs a Valentine's Day like intro, man, I'd go to
I'm
Davey,
in.
you know.
I'm in. I'm in.
Side hustle has been launched.
That's
No,
right.
I'm glad to be here with everybody. I see some familiar faces, so good to see you all. I see Michelle, who was with me yesterday in another webinar. So Michelle's like pulling double duty. It's a season of webinars, I think. No, I'm excited to be here. So I was tasked to create ways that, how we can make sure that our clients feel the love. And so I kind of took a few tidbits out of what we call our WOW customer service training. So for those of you who have access to our agency school, you have access to this, you can give it to your team, but this is just a high overview of kind of 12 ways we can help our clients feel the love. And let's be honest, sometimes there can be some abusive relationships because rates are going up. So we have to make them extra feel the love in a hard market. But I do tell you guys this, I don't have to like paying taxes, but I can like my accountant. I don't have to like going to the dentist, but I can like my dentist. And I think sometimes our teams really feel like this impact of I am the rate, I am all being, and I want to just sort of help reduce some of the stress. So for those of you guys who are interested, let us know. But I will tell you all this sneak peek. Davey doesn't even know this. I'm going to news drop here live. In May, we are going to launch a 4-part series on how to handle stress in your job, which I think will be very, very valuable for many team members. So that will be live trainings that can hop in, it'll be recorded. But I see so many service professionals so stressed. And I felt very passionate at the beginning of this year. Like every year I pick something I want to solve in the industry. And this was not looking at staff members like they're going to disintegrate because they are so stressed. So just so you guys know, watch for that. That'll be coming in May. And it kind of dovetails into how to give WOW service. So I like to think in our WOW service, we kind of cover these following items. You can use the bit.ly link if you want to learn more, but how do we track customer satisfaction? How do we relish in phone call reviews, right? So how do you listen to your team's recorded phone calls? How do we incentivize our service team members? They are not like producers. I have seen agencies put $100 bills out on a table and say the first person to even ask for a cross sell walks home with $100 and they'll still be all the bills on the table at the end of the day. They're different. So a lot of agency owners are salespeople, service people are motivated differently. We have the anatomy of a service call, 10 things to never say to a client, how to wow callers and wow greeting, how to handle customers around payments and price, how to do rounding, referrals, and reviews, first call resolution, one of my personal favorites. Guys, if your team is backlogged and can't keep up, I'm just going to give you 2 tips. Are they wearing a headset and are they doing first call resolution? We have timed it. First call resolution is an 8-minute vehicle change. Without it, it's 28 minutes. And so there's a huge time saver of first call resolution. And the number one pushback I get is I don't like to wear the headset because it messes up my hair. And I'm like, girl, Britney Spears can be rocking on stage with a headset. We can too. So we gotta work through some of those challenges. How to follow up with clients and follow through. We are not babysitters. We are not to micromanage our customers, right? So we have to follow up a set number of times and then let it go like Elsa baby. But we are not here to make sure that every day that they do everything. How to handle an upset customer, finding those wow moments. Documentation delights, because you can't be a good service person without updating the system. How to manage your time and how to prioritize your clients. So these are all things in the training if you guys want it. We also are currently doing, that's where you saw Michelle, if anybody wants to register, a 4-part series on WOW customer service with the PIA National. So we are still accepting registrations. The first one was yesterday, but people can get caught up. So you can go ahead and download these slides. You can click the QR code. I'll give everybody a minute. It will take you to a little form. You fill it out. It'll get emailed to you and it will pop up on your screen. So if you do want to follow along or you think that these are so great, it will pop up at the end as well. So in the event that you're like, I don't know if I need it, but I say something cool and you want it, you'll get to it at the end as well. So I don't know if I can be Davey's intro, but for those of you who might not have come across my path, I have worked with over 1,000 agencies between the US and Canada. So yesterday I was in Jessup, Georgia, in case anybody's been to lovely Jessup, Georgia. Before that, I was in Murraysville, Pennsylvania. And before that, I was in New Bern, North Carolina. So we go all over to only the glamorous places I get to go, of course, right? But we want to help agencies maximize their performance, ultimately hit their potential. And we want to have a lot of fun doing it. You don't have to have training be boring. I also want to help everybody become ridiculously amazing. And I believe everyone's got to have a positive attitude, put the work in, and if we fail, we learn. But one of the things I see a lot of service professionals is their attitude is not positive. And so when you have somebody that's not presenting a positive attitude and serving your customers, I'm going to tell you people can only fake it for so long before they start becoming short, disgruntled, argumentative, not giving it their all. They're still giving it their half. Just a little bit about me personally. I live in Rhode Island, 42 miles wide, 47 miles tall. We have just under 1 million people, but we have more people than the entire state of Wyoming. So just a fun-filled Rhode Island fact if you needed one. That is our rescue puppy, America. Everybody should want to be reincarnated as her. She goes to doggy daycare 6 days a week. She gets organic chicken jerky as treats. This is what happens when you don't have children. So I'm on Peloton. If anyone wants to follow me on Peloton, I fly every week. That's my husband, Andrew. I've watched every episode of Grey's Anatomy, and Chance the Rapper followed me on Twitter for insurance advice. So that are my qualifications and knowing Davey for being here today. So the first thing I want to say when we talk about our service team and how to wow people is you need to be really, really in tune with your team. And if you have an Eeyore on your team, I'm going to ask you to really think hard about relocating them to the competition. Because an Eeyore will never be a great customer service professional. They are down in the dumps. They're going to challenge you. They're going to say they can't do it. Oh, it's so busy. Customers only care about price. Nobody wants to get on EFT. You know, like there's all these things. Everything's a challenge. The modern customer service professional is a problem solver. They're efficient in technology, right? They're controlling the customer. They're not letting the customer control them. And I think when we look at it, I can sense when I walk into an agency who the Eeyore is. And I would say 80% of agencies have an Eeyore, right? The person that's holding the whole thing back. And they're contagious. And that's the problem. But a Tigger is coming into work saying, how can we do this? Let me get somebody on our client portal. Let me send that work to the VE, right? So I know a lot of you might be using virtual intelligence. The Eeyore is never going to want to send stuff to the VE. They're going to want to hold it, you know, and like, I can't trust it. My customers only want to talk to me, but then they will sit there and be backlogged and drowning and not cross-sell and not do renewal reviews because they just can't let go of the death grip of work that's honestly below their pay grade. And so I like to label things because when I see an Eeyore, I know what to do. When I let them come up and talk to me and tell me all about how busy it is, no one cares, we need 17 people in order to survive. And then I look at the best practices number and I say, actually, you're overstaffed. They have like a little like conniption fit inside of them. So we have somebody let an Eeyore go, Eeyore free. I love that. It does change your life. And I know some of you do some of our programs. I just as a little tip, we have a growth bonus basically, and it's divided up between the service team. And I had an agency come up to me on Friday and said, we've been doing it for a year. And literally no one has asked me to hire any more people because they'd have to split that growth bonus with people. So they actually asked if they could get another virtual assistant so that they didn't have to split the growth bonus. So sometimes there's tricks you can use to get the service people in alignment, but I could talk about that all day. So the way I want us to think about customer service, and I actually kind of like the word customer experience a lot more than service, because I think customer service and insurance has that connotation. And I just want to bust up a few things right here to start it off. You know, oh, well, we must serve them. We must do everything that they request. That's not true. We need to control the situation. And also, I hear a lot of service professionals do something that I can't stand, and I will stop them when I hear it, but I'm just a service person. No, they're managing millions of dollars of your premium. They're not just a service person. And in fact, the hardest job in an agency is to keep customers happy with a product they hate. Okay. So the hardest job in the entire agency is serving customers. And you guys can fight me in chat on that. You know, as a producer, you get wins all day. As a service person, you get they didn't cancel because nobody's excited. And this hard market has drained your service team's batteries because they want to fix everything. They want friction free. They want to love people. They want to celebrate a new car. They don't want to have to keep giving bad news like Groundhog Day. So if you see them, and there's a big difference, by the way, between an Eeyore and somebody who is burned out. Okay. And we need to make sure that we're putting good standards in place so that they understand that their only job is to educate the client, give them their options, let the client decide. That their responsibility isn't to make sure that people are happy with their insurance. And I know that sounds strange, but follow me on this journey. We are not Disney World. We are not designed to make people happy every day. We are here to make them happy the day that they have a car accident, their house burns down, they have a workplace accident. That is the day that they need to be happy. None of your team members, if my rate doubles, are going to make me happy. I am not going to be happy. It doesn't mean that I don't pay. It doesn't mean that I don't stay. It doesn't mean that I don't hate, I hate my account manager. But I am not going to be happy if my insurance doubles in premium. Okay. So we have to let go of the fact that people are going to be happy. They're not. They're going to be satisfied and renewed, and they're going to be happy the day that they have a claim. And that burden weighs really heavily on service professionals because they want everyone to, you know, be Disney World. And that's just not the environment that we're in. So we like to give our service team members a visual, and it's a piggy bank, right? So it's super cool. So I don't have kids. You met my fur child. But I was super excited that kids still have piggy banks, right? Because I'm out of touch with children. I thought they'd have like crypto wallets and like stock portfolios, but they still have piggy banks apparently, which is cool. So I want you to think about a client piggy bank. And then I'm going to couple this with another childhood game. I don't know how many of you guys ever played the game Chutes and Ladders as a kid. If you did, go to the chat, tell them this. So you have this piggy bank, and we need to make enough deposits in the piggy bank so the day my rate doubles, there's enough in there so I stay because I trust you, basically. So we're going to take a withdrawal because the rate went up, but because I have loyalty and I trust you guys and you guys have done a good job, maybe through renewal reviews and by making sure that you're proactive. Now when that rate goes up, that's not as big of a hit. If the piggy bank is low, right, and that rate doubles, that's when the person gets spicy, shops, leaves, calls you a lying crook, thief, cheat, scam, con artist. You guys have heard all the things that you've been called throughout the course of time. It's because there's not enough in that piggy bank. So when a friction point happens, there's, you know, we're negative balance basically. And that visual works really, really well with service people, just so you know. So that's something that, you know, you can kind of pass on. But onto the chutes and ladders analogy, right? So and chutes and ladders, I forget if you spin or you roll the dice, but you move 3 up the board, and it's either a ladder that gives you up or a slide that takes you down, or it's neutral. So I like to visualize and say, okay, every time I talk to a customer, how can I get up the ladder? Even if it's just we updated their contact information, we, you know, did a little mini review. I did a discount review and found I could save them $50 a year. All those little things build trust. But when we just transact, right, with no frills, no proof, no nothing, that's neutral. And then if something negative happens, like a claim's not paid, a bill had a billing issue, my rate went up, that's a down, right? And so I like to think about every call, we want to try to get even one rung up the ladder, because I don't know what the renewal is going to come in at. I don't know if they're going to get non-renewed. I don't know if they're going to have a weird claim that's not covered. So I want your teams to be thinking all the time, how can I maximize my deposits? Because I don't know when I'm going to need a withdrawal. And then that kind of puts it in people's heads of like, hey, every interaction, can I put a little sparkle on it, right? Can I be awesome? And that's a challenge, but a lot of them think a good job is the transaction, the neutral experience. And I want to change that mindset to a great job is that one extra. You know, it's the Chick-fil-A moment where they get 17-year-olds to say my pleasure. and give me as much dipping sauce as I want. You know, like that is what we're looking for, extra dipping sauce. So you can, again, if you want, you can get the slides here. I'm going to walk you through the 12 things that we think are really important for the mindset of the customer service professional to be successful. So the first is everybody's job descriptions out there, and this is kind of newer for some people that have worked with us. I want one of their top things on their job description now to be building relationships. So most job descriptions are like process endorsements, take payments, do certificates. Great. Yes, all of those. But the number one priority is actually building a relationship. And this is tough because we have the Goldilocks principle of we can't sit on the phone for 25 minutes talking about their grandmother's jam, right? Because we have other clients to serve. So you have to be equal and fair in your relationship distribution. So we want to put the customer at the center of everything we do. Now, where we get tripped up on this is we build processes for us, not the customer. And then we build processes sometimes around our worst customers as opposed to our ideal customers. So for example, if you loved contractors and you know contractors start at job sites early and they need certificates, maybe your agency has one person open at 7 a.m. to do certificates. That would be putting the customer at the center of everything we do. If you do home and auto and you like growing dual income families, maybe you need to have a scholarship program and work with the local high schools because that's going to get you out into the communities that you serve, right? So when you have your ideal customer, then you can build relationships based on who's there. Where we fail is we try to be everything, right? We try to serve the monoline auto that sometimes pays to me that has 28 policies. And we try to have the same relationship profile with everybody, and that just simply doesn't work. So a simple relationship building technique is when people call in, just ask them, what do you do? Hey, tell me how your business started. Hey, I hear a baby in the background. How old are they? When did you have the baby? Hey, is that a dog? What's the dog's name? And if you just in your management system document it on a little note or wherever you're going to put it, all systems are different. If anybody has questions, email me. I'll tell you in your system. But Kelly's dog's name is America. She flies all the time. She may be hard to get. She prefers text message to start the conversation. You know, she is very funny and very good looking. You can put that in there. You can be fine by me. Just kidding. But if you put that in there, then next time you call and I call in and maybe I'm huffy, right? Because something happened. Like right now it's actually happening. I have an insurance issue. My husband's race car is due. His insurance is due the 14th of February. The only reason I know that is it's Valentine's Day. And for some reason, American Modern never can seem to get us a bill. So I have an open task to remind me to go ahead and get the bill and pay it, right? So if instead when I call in to get the bill, you're like, hey, how's America? I'll go talk about my dog for like 4 minutes and be like, when you get a chance, could you send me that bill? Where before I was huffy because I had to call in to get a bill, right? So these are little things that make a person first and a policy second. And I would like to tell this story. A couple years ago, probably a decade now, actually, I broke my ankle and they told me I didn't need surgery and I was going for a follow-up. And you got to remember my file's over here and he's looking at the x-ray over here. And this, I don't try not to use bad vocabulary, but he was not my favorite person that day. This doctor told me I needed surgery. And I was like, it's been 30 days. That should have happened 30 days ago if I needed surgery. I'm not doing this again. And then I looked at him and I said, what's my name? And he couldn't answer because my file was over there. He's not cutting into my ankle if you don't know my name. So I went and got a second opinion. I didn't need surgery, but we have to remember that he built no relationship with me. Now, if he had yucked it up with me and had a good time, I might have been in the operating table because he had made me feel comfortable. So I use that as an analogy for us to remember when people call in, they're a person and then they're a policy. And by the way, I think we do this great sometimes, okay? The clients that we know, the frequent flyers, we do great with. But on average, people are going to call every 2.7 years. There's a lot of people your team doesn't know. And when they call in, they're going to have that neutral experience where we really need to escalate up the piggy bank. So the next is right versus fast. So people want their insurance done right, not fast. And to get it done right, we do have to take time. We have to ask a lot of questions. We have to take time to educate them, and we have to double check our work so there's no mistakes. So when clients only call once every 2.7 years, a lot of times that rush comes from our own feeling of being overwhelmed because we have emails and voicemails and people in the lobby and open activities, and we don't feel like we can give them the time because we have to get on to the next one. But the reality is we're talking about 30 seconds. So your brain is a caveman or cave lady brain, right? It's trying to protect you at all points in time. So if I'm sitting here doing my work, maybe I'm quoting something, and somebody else calls in, what's the instantaneous thing that goes into everybody's head? Oh, another interruption. So we rush that client to get back to what we are doing because our brain's like a magnet. I want everybody to just let it go, like Elsa, say that can wait, and I'm going to give this person my undivided attention. But you will find, because we're going in between things all the time, this is a big customer service thing that we need to work through. So this is my husband's blue Mustang. If anybody would like a blue Mustang race car, text me. I'll leave the keys in it. You can steal it and it will make my life better. Okay. This is the problem. This is a blue Mustang race car. My husband does things to it. I'm a good insurance person. It gets dropped. Now it's with American Modern, who can't seem to ever send me a bill. I don't understand, but here's the problem. When me and my husband met, we were both broke as a joke. I mean, like living off of credit cards for groceries broke. Not partying broke, like living off of credit cards broke. Somehow we all got second jobs to keep that stupid car. And so when we got out of that, he named it Kelly too, meaning that we can never get rid of it now. I don't know if that was a strategy, but that is the bane of my existence. And it has a car trailer, and it's never gets used almost, but that's okay. That's my play. But if you get my husband on the phone, he doesn't understand liability and when it's covered and when it's not covered and comprehensive. He doesn't understand any of that. But if you get him talking about the car, he will buy any form of insurance from you. So if you talk the tool, how about the tools? Oh, we've got lots of tools. Are those protected? Oh, they should be. Like, you will get him gushing. And I think we sometimes forget, we have to talk about the person's home, talk about how they started the business. You know, again, we treat them like a person than a policy. We need to talk about what we're insuring to get to the heart of how to insure it correctly. Otherwise, it's just a bill. So people buy insurance for the worst days of their lives. If we can get them to gush about the thing that they're insuring, then we're connecting with them on what they're protecting, not the premium or the price. Okay. So you have to get back in love with, like, this house. Yeah, this is where you brought your first kid home. This is where, you know, like, you got engaged with two. This is where you had your you know, parents' 60th wedding anniversary. Like, you need to get them gushing about the thing, not about the price, because they're looking at it like a bill and you're looking at it like an asset. And so you need to work to slowly, like, Jedi mind trick them into thinking how you think. And the client's entitled to their feelings, all right? So their perception's their version of reality. And if you're not doing renewal reviews, you're not building up trust and equity with people, okay? So the whole point is that insurance is one of the least trustworthy industries on the face of the planet. Nobody thinks that we're good people. And that's because the day we need it, it's very unclear how it works. So my husband, okay, also, poor little Andrew Piro, he's not even here to defend himself. He also gets our insurance renewal for our vehicles because I'm on the road all the time. And he opens it and I kind of know when it's coming. And I try to avoid his phone calls at that point in time if I'm not home, because he will tell me, we need to shop. This is ridiculous. My friend pays $98 a month. I mean, all the stuff you guys hear all the time, my husband says to me. And then I just say to him, does your friend have a brand new Ford F-350? No. Okay. Did your friend drive by a school bus with a stop sign out? And would you like me to put up the video footage that they sent us when you got your ticket? No, but that was a long time ago. Not long enough for insurance to not recognize that that's on your driving record. So one day I got so mad at him, I just said, hun, what do you think we should be paying? And he said $13 a month. My own husband said we should be paying $13 a month. And I said, here's the policies. You go shop it and you let me know when you find $13 a month. He's entitled to his opinion, right? His perception of reality, but I had to talk him back into the normalcy of the world, right? But our clients don't, he doesn't do insurance. Now, if you want a deck bill, if you want like a brand new, beautiful bathroom, like he can help you with that, but he doesn't do insurance. So what happens is our team hears that, and here's my, my husband's 100% Italian. So when he gets upset, I call him a spicy meatball. He's just a little spicy meatball that's coming at you. And he'll, if I didn't step in, the account manager would think, oh my gosh, Andrew's upset and they have 28 policies and I must fix this for them. The answer is you don't need to fix it. You need to spend time educating it. And if he builds a relationship because you're proactive and you talk to him about his little Mustang, then you're going to be fine. So we miss the boat a lot on how to communicate with people. And again, they don't have to like insurance, but they can like doing business with your team. And, I think by like little things like my dentist, I always use my dentist as an example. I don't like going to the dentist, but my dentist now has a thing where like a day before the appointment, there's like a little survey. Do you want to talk? What kind of music do you want to listen to? And like what color toothbrush? So it's all squared away. So no, I don't want to talk while your hands are in my mouth. Like, thank you. And I would like 90s hip hop because that sounds like a great thing to have your teeth cleaned too. And you know what? Pink toothbrush. Thank you. But other times they're like, in there, you're like, this is annoying. Like, I don't like coming here. And then they have a Where's Waldo poster on the ceiling. So while we're not talking, I try to find Waldo. They figured out how to build a better mousetrap, right? So the next thing is when I first started going out into agencies, now this is 18 years ago, I went to 5 agencies in 1 week. And every time the phone rang at the first agency, and I was like, oh, it's cold season. People must just have a little tickle in their throat. Second agency. And I was like, oh, this is bad. Third agency, I brought cough drops. And I asked the woman if she wanted one. And she goes, no, why? I go, well, because you kind of like cleared your throat before you picked up the phone. I thought something was wrong. And she just said, well, I just keep getting interrupted all day. I can't get anything done. The phone here doesn't stop ringing. And then I was like, oh, we have a bad mindset. To her, the phone was an interruption. And by the way, that's happened to everybody on this meeting, right? Like sometimes you're in the middle of something and it's like, so I look at it like, what happens if the phone stops ringing? You have to kind of check your head back into the game, right? If you're a service professional, you have to get good about rebounding back into the game. Those phone calls are blessings. They are not interruptions. And you have to get your team thinking like that. We can't just be available when it's convenient for us. That's not the game of service, right? The game of service is to be available when they need us. And that might mean we have to put this aside for a minute and help the person. We're the least convenient way to get insurance. So yes, people are going to call while we're in the middle of doing other things, and that's a blessing, not a curse. This one people like to write down everywhere. It's not in the management system. It didn't happen. Service teams need to document the management system efficiently and effectively, okay? And they need to put everything in, and they need to use their suspenses or tasks, whatever it's called in your systems, everyone's different, 100% of the time. But if there's something I like to train service professionals on first, it's actually how to document the file correctly. And I have seen everything from people putting in their client was a raving lunatic. I'm like, do you want to read that in the court of law? No. You don't put your own opinions in there. You put facts, and you have to document it well, because a well-documented system saves so much time and reduces so much frustration. And I also believe in real-time documentation. So before I hang up the phone with that client, it is in the system. So those are things that, if it's not in the system, it didn't happen. Don't let your team have notepads. I know that's going to make some of y'all cringe, but your notepad is a crutch, it's a trap, it's a binky, it's your comfort blanket. Hide it, get it into the system. Then everybody can operate in a more efficient fashion. But this one is one that stings when I tell people this. You can't care more about their insurance than they do. You have 1,000 people to serve, 500 people, whatever the bookload is, right? I can't care more about 1,000 people's insurance than they do. Okay. And what I mean by this is some people will go home on a Friday night not sleep because their client didn't bind coverage. They're out to dinner with their family. They're not caring that they purchased a home for cash and don't have insurance on it. And we go home caring for them and stealing sleep. The bottom line is you can't care more about their insurance than they do. It's just the truth. You have 1,000 people to care for, and we can't let it get us all eaten up inside. But I like to say that we're, educators, and educators share what's needed by when and tell people the consequence if they don't do it. Babysitters continuously hound the client for what they need. So we have to pick where we're most valuable. And a lot of times we're picking over servicing some clients, and then we can't get proactive to other clients. So I use the example of my brother. My brother lives in my mom's basement, is 40 years old, and sometimes has insurance. And in the course of a year, with his 6-month progressive policy that's sometimes enforced and mostly has fees and late payments, he would get way more service than I would with my 28 policies, right? Because you'd be calling him to make payment. You'd be calling him because he might buy one of 3 20-year-old cars and he needs to know what it's going to cost. He's going to have claims. He's going to call and yell at you, and you're going to think you need to drop everything to service him. And then my account comes up with 28 policies, and most team members are intimidated by my account. So they push it off to the side. And I think you have to realize when you say yes to catering to my brother, you're saying no to getting referrals from me. Because I don't need anything. In 5 years, I needed 1 certificate and we needed to change 1 vehicle. So in a reactive business model, I look at it like I have 28 units of insurance. I should get 28 times more service than my brother, who sometimes has 1. So we'll call it a half. But the roles are reversed, where he gets 28 units of service and I get half of 1 unit of service because I'm far more profitable. And those are things that you really have to challenge your team to identify. And let's donate those clients to the competition that are killing our profit margin. And honestly, they're weighing your team down. We have an agency in New York, and I'm not saying I advocate for this, but it's a good analogy. You can choose if you want to do this or not. But every year the agency owner would let them fire, I think it was, I don't know, like 5 clients. Maybe it was more than that. And he would call the client and say, hey, you're not a good fit for us. We're, at your renewal, you need to find another agent. And these women, they were all women. They would go to the Mexican restaurant across the street. Okay. And it would be like the NCAA brackets popped up of who they would eat margaritas, nachos, and they would figure out who they're going to fire. And I've never seen a happier staff just by them telling, hey, what are the 5 clients we need to get rid of this year? So sometimes you have to realize that we're also not setting our teams up for success. Okay. No apologies. Okay. Service professionals who apologize, in my mind, are rookies. You don't apologize. We don't apologize for rate. We don't apologize for everything. You all probably have somebody on your team that every time you say something, they apologize, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Or, it is a bad look, because if every time I talk to you, if you're saying I'm sorry, what I'm sorry is something wrong happened, it shouldn't have, and you need compensation for it, right? And when the rates go up, did you cause the rate to go up? No, it was either the carrier needed more money and the insurance commissioner approved, or the client had negative activity. There is nothing for your agency to apologize for. Also, I make enough mistakes, so I need to save my apologies for when I screw up. And when you apologize, you admit guilt and fault. So I look at it like you need to have empathy, not sympathy. So sympathy is, this was wrong. This should have never happened, right? Empathy is, I can understand why you feel that way. So for the first decade of my insurance career, I just didn't know what else to say. Nobody had told me anything to say other than I'm sorry. Every time somebody's feathers were ruffled, I was apologizing, until I kind of had to sit down and said, what if I said, I'm so glad you called so we could figure this out? Or, hey, I know that must have been frustrating. Let's dive in and see what we can do. But delete the apologies from your team's vocabulary. That is not a way to wow your customer. Do you think you give wow service if every time I call in somebody's saying I'm sorry to me? I don't think so. I think we need to get rid of that. We also have to focus on outcomes versus tasks. There are some team members on agency staff I see that just work their task list in the management system, which is great. That's what they should be doing, but they don't think about the outcome. So I'll hear a lot of times of like, okay, well, what happened here? And they say, well, I emailed them 3 times. And I was thinking, well, if that didn't work, why didn't we pick up the darn phone? They're like, oh, well, people don't like the phone. Yep, but we do, right? And so the phone is a very refreshing thing sometimes. So if something's not working, we're not getting what we want, maybe those emails are going to junk or spam. Maybe the person's got 7,365,000 emails in their inbox. You can't know. You have to get to a place, I think, where we think about how are we going to solve this, not just keep moving it down the pike, right? And if something's not working, stop and maybe pick up the phone. If they don't return your voicemail, ask for the receptionist. Find out when they're going to be in the office. Ask the receptionist to give them a message. Like there's 1,000,001 things that we can do to solve the challenge versus just keep bumping things out. Now, this one is tough because people struggle with this a lot. And we're in the process of revamping our time management training. We revamp our programs every 3 years, like our really big core programs. And this is one that we could never get people to really embrace, which is called raise your hand. Raise your hand means when you start to get backlogged, you need to communicate. You need to tell people. And I look at it like it's a sign of courage, not weakness. But we would still run reports of overdue activities and people would be backlogged. And I would be beating my head against the wall. Why aren't you raising your hand? I don't know. The bottom line is when people are backlogged, it's a promise that's broken to somebody. And so we need to get into the habit of a culture of embracing people raising their hand. Now, I have some agencies where people raise their hand too much, and that's a whole different problem, but that's like a minority. Majority just don't, and then they get so backlogged and problems happen. So I say this because when I was early in my insurance career, I was the ugly crier. Now, many of you who might know me be like, what? You? No, I would be the one that would get so backlogged. One, because I didn't know how to manage my desk. I was young. I would just say yes to everybody. I wanted everybody to be happy. I wanted to be Disney World in my desk. And I would say, yes, I'll shop you. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. I didn't have first call resolution down because, hey, the world was different back then. I had an MS-DOS system and one monitor. To put this in perspective, there was no such thing as ATM cards even at this time frame in the universe. So I'd have all this mess. And then one day I would just break down under my desk with the ugly cry, you know, the snot and the redness and the tears and the like hyperventilation. And it would take me 4 to 6 hours to get organized enough to even get help. And that was and by the way, the worst part about that was it's mortifyingly embarrassing. Okay. Like it's just embarrassing. And I just kept thinking like, we're in 2025. How can we support and foster a culture of asking for help? And there's a variety of reasons that I can go through. Like people think we're not doing their job. The biggest one you need to know is they think if they ask for help, they're going to burden other team members. And I would say, no, maybe it's just that you go on D&D. Maybe it's I look at your tasks and you're over servicing Kelly's brother again. And we need to have that conversation. Maybe we're over remarketing. Maybe we're sitting there and, you had 22 policies to bind for new business, which is awesome. Maybe we find out that we have a big seasonality spike in your book here. The idea is that you let people know so we can do the research and figure out truly how to help. But if your team's not communicating and constantly running in backlog, there's only so much stress that's allowed. You have to kind of do the work. And there's usually about 12 to 15 things that you want to unpack to find out why they can't seem to keep up. Banana principle. So this is when you need to stop using insurance terms. So to truly wow and love our customers, my grandma doesn't know subrogation. My grandma doesn't know what comprehensive is. My grandma doesn't know what an RCE is. Okay. So when we use these insurance terms, we complicate things, and many people have bought insurance for so long that they're embarrassed that they don't know what you're talking about. So they don't ask. So we have a statement, when you confuse, you lose, right? So if you're talking and talking and talking and nobody's responding and they say, okay, you didn't hit the mark. The way you want to explain things to insureds is 2 sentences and a question, So it might be something like, do you know what happens if a tree falls on your car, or it gets stolen, or you hit a deer? No, I don't. Okay. That's called comprehensive coverage. And what that does, it's an added level of coverage for these items, so it's not when you're getting into a car accident. And we recommend that you always have that because these things do happen. So you want to have 2 sentences in a question at a very 5th grade level in order to get people to understand their insurance. That's a huge way to wow them. Another strategy is everyone has to be on agency growth. It's not just the producers. And service professionals need to identify that they are part of growth. Their growth through retention, coverage increases, cross sells, wowing the customer so they send in referrals. But it's not, sales job, service job. Some people do both. But I always like to think about the fact that if a service person can get a good online review, that's very, very valuable. And we all benefit. I think a little chat came in here. Let me see here. There's a question.
Yeah, it says, how do we do that without sounding like we are talking down to the client, was the question that came through, Kelly.
I think, is that kind of on the Nana principle? Like, how do we?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like you're not speaking to them in small, like they're a slow grandma. How do you do that? How do you walk that line, I guess?
Well, first of all, with my grandma, I have to really talk loud, so you don't have to talk loud to them. That's a key. But I think the biggest thing is you could start off by asking, hey, just because so many people are you familiar with what comprehensive coverage does? And if they're like, oh yeah, I know what it does this, and like, okay, cool, you're good. But a lot of people don't know. And so I think the idea is I guess the better way maybe to put it is if I'm kind of coming off the wrong way, maybe I want you to have a conversation with the client about the coverage. A lot of people do what I call puke up coverage. So they would be like, you need comprehensive coverage because if your car gets hit by a tree and and you need it because of those reasons, and you just for 2 minutes went on about a coverage, you've lost the person somewhere, about 15 seconds in, and they're going to say, okay, I'm good. No, thanks. I'm fine. But they couldn't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, maybe Kelly, is it what I see in this question too? Maybe you could comment about this. Is like maybe sometimes our agents assume that the customer is educated. Are there ways that in a subtle way they can try to discover what they do or don't? It's like, look, we hear you see commercials, you hear about insurance, maybe in that process where I'm talking to you about an insurance, maybe I got to find out if you even know, but I think so many times they get caught in the grind. How do they discover that?
So a lot of times the renewal reviews are really great for that, and kind of walking through, say, let's go through what you have, and see if we need to make any adjustments. And then what you can do is kind of talk about some of the adjustments you could make to the coverages. So I think there's a lot of opportunity sometimes to increase coverage on some policies. So, hey, I want to go through what this is, and here's my recommendation and why I think you need that. And I think just kind of like going back through. So, and I think too, some people think they know, but they don't really know, right?
Mhm.
Like they assume, like, like if you ask my mom what an umbrella policy is, she's like, yeah, I have one and it protects my umbrellas. And I'm like, no, it protects you from what your son does in your basement from being an idiot. And then she's like, oh, right, that policy. But she couldn't actually explain the nitty gritty of it, mainly because I have to like resell her on it every year. So I just name stupid stuff my brother did and say, yeah, if he did that on your property and one of his idiot friends slipped, you realize you probably wouldn't be going to Greece next summer. Oh, it's my travel insurance policy. Sure, mom, if that's how you need to renew it, that's fine.
Awesome.
So sometimes you just have to talk to people at their level, right? But the biggest thing I see with the service teams are, I want everybody to have a growth mindset, right? How can we think about growing? In my mind, sometimes account managers in particular want to live in Groundhog Day. Like they would love the same day over and over and over again with no technology changes and no carrier changes. And I also have to say this, I respect it because when I first got started, I had 3 logins. Now today, when you guys are setting up a new account manager, how many logins do you have to get them? Like they have to know so many things. But I also like to say that if we don't change, we become Blockbuster. And I'm 43. I got another 25 years doing this. We can't become Blockbuster. I don't know how to do anything else, guys. So like it's this or Starbucks barista. And I think the pay scale is a little different on that. So I got to figure this out. But I also think somebody put in there the Eeyores, I want to say something that has been a big kind of mantra of mine to all my clients is it's so important that we understand some metrics of this business. We are in the process of the silver tsunami, which is the term in insurance that we have all these veterans coming to retirement age and retiring out. Okay. Like they're leaving. And by the way, I'm saying this with all the love of my heart for these people. There's some opportunity there because some of them resisted technology. Like they were very insurance smart, but kind of were living a little bit like in the glory days, right? But we have not done a great job of getting new people in. So we have a gap. Like there will not be enough licensed agents. So it's like 3 times a day I have to tell people, stop trying to find the unicorn of the licensed agent who knows your systems, who knows your carriers. And then you're going to need to untrain them to do it the way you want it done, right? I am a believer that, and I've seen agencies wait 9 months, 10 months, 12 months. They're like, we can't find anybody. I go, do you realize that if you had just hired someone that is teachable and has a good attitude 9 months ago, they would have 9 months of insurance knowledge under their belt? We need to start embracing things like virtual assistants, which is why I know you guys are all here. But we also need to embrace the idea that I would rather my clients find somebody good and train them than take the industry baggage right now. And I understand that that's hard. Sometimes you do have to hire out of desperation. But from this point forward, learn your lesson. And you need to always be hiring, always be recruiting, and we can train people insurance. We all learned, right? Was anybody here born with a license? So we can learn and we can train people. But I would rather build my team than buy my team. And it's a very complicated thing because I just see so many agents like we just can't find anybody. And I'm like, again, if you had just hired somebody 6 months ago, entry level, we would have been well on our way by now. So there's an opportunity cost. Doesn't mean you can't keep looking for the licensed person that's the unicorn. You can, but you can also hire someone and start training them at the same time. Right? So keep that in the back of your mind. I just like this as a quick visual. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be able to take a couple questions, right? So just pop them in the chat, but good customer service professionals need to have foresight. They need to have a thoughtful tone. Tone of voice is everything. And I don't think people realize how they come off sometimes. It's okay to be funny. Like I actually like it when a customer service person has a little humor to them. Like it means they can kind of be on their feet and, make people feel at ease. They need to be helpful. They also need to be fast thinkers. They need to solve problems. They need to be great listeners. They need to have a kind heart, but not like a bleeding heart. Like I swear someday I'm going to walk into one of my clients and there'll be a sign like, give me your sick, your unhealthy, everybody. We serve all the people here because they're in my town, and in my town, we serve all the people who didn't have insurance, people want insurance for a day, people who don't pay their bills. We serve them all because they're in our town. And I always say, well, like maybe we need to look elsewhere. They got to have an iron stomach. Clients will not always be nice. And that's because they're having a reaction to things they don't understand. Now, I'll be upfront, like sometimes I have a reaction. If I go to the airport tomorrow, I've been gone for 11 days and that flight's canceled and I'm not getting home tomorrow, I'm going to have a reaction. And, Delta is going to look at my mileage status and be super sweet to me because I'm a million miler, diamond medallion, blah, 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 right? Like we have to have an iron stomach, girls. I'm not mad at that gate agent. I'm mad because I really want to go home and see my husband and my dog after being away for 11 days. And so sometimes you have to realize people aren't mad at you. Maybe they're mad because they put a down payment on a vacation. Maybe they're mad because they just paid company bonuses and now they didn't realize their insurance was going to go up this much. Usually they're mad at something else. And they got to have thick skin, right? And so when you're hiring, these are things you can look for that help you get to a better level. So I'd love to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, Kelly, I've got a really nuanced one. when you talk about asking for help being not asking for help being selfish, this is, as you know, on the virtual employee side, is really tough for somebody in another country that speaks another language to have the confidence to bug their boss at the insurance agency. And we coach them all the time, at least to foster that confidence with our virtual employees. What are some of the things that, like, the leaders of these organizations, the principals, the managers of people, what are the best practices that they can do to facilitate that open environment where it's okay to come and ask for help, and how they can facilitate that openness, and not be too like, hey, hustle and bustle, we gotta go, you can't come talk. It's like, what's the best way for the folks on the call to facilitate that open dialogue so that people, their direct reports feel comfortable coming and asking for help?
Yeah, I mean, so we have 7 virtual team members, right? So I know this very well, but I'll say that we treat them just like our US staff. There is no difference. In fact, 2 of my team members that have been with me the longest are managers. And so they're overseas, but they're managing and they're running our marketing and they're also running our data team. And so, and we've hired people from the US to do it before, and I can't find anybody better than them. And so I promoted them, and, we've dumped a lot of training into them stuff, but as a leader, here's some things I'm going to tell you guys, and I don't think people in here are going to like it. Okay. But understand that if you want to run a great business, not an insurance agency, we have to think like a business owner. And so the first thing I always tell people is you need to have more meetings than you think you do. So in my company, everybody has a one-on-one. We went to monthly, but that's because the team's been here long enough. If they're in their first year, it's for the first 6 months, it's every week, and then every 2 weeks, and then once a month. And some managers choose to do it more than that, but a one-on-one with a structured agenda will build the relationship. Then I can look at numbers. I can be prepared. There's an agenda. We can talk about a lot of things that builds up trust. You have to have department meetings. And the biggest thing I always like to say is we have to operate from facts, not feelings. There is gold inside of your management system of cues of what needs to be happening. But like every agency we walk into, I was just in one for 2 days yesterday, and it's like, oh, well, we get so, we're so busy. They use the B word, the word I can't stand, the beginning of the month, because everybody walks into pay. And I go, okay, calm down, first of all, because they were so mad that I was there at the beginning of the month. They couldn't fathom why I would be there at the beginning of the month. And I just said, I just want to see how it all works. They took 3 walk-in payments. That's it. They were telling me that they can't function. And I'm like, well, the facts are you took 3 walk-in payments. And then they said, well, we sell so much new business. I'm not going to go numbers. They do not sell that much new business. But in their mind, they have no facts, right? So they don't know anything different. So in their mind, they're killing themselves. But in all reality, this agency was at least 40% overstaffed, right? So we have to do facts, not feelings. The other thing that you have to do is you can read people's body language. So especially for your virtual team, Zoom meetings, everybody on camera. I don't care that you don't want to go on camera. You need to get on camera. We need to see your face. We need to see your facial expressions. You couldn't go into a meeting in a conference room with a paper bag over your head. Okay. Like, we need to be able to see people. And the last thing I will say is like, you kind of sometimes have to do some wellness checks, like just text them or call them and say, I was just thinking about you. How are you doing? And that goes a really, really long way. But what I found, Davey, is that so many people are actually, the virtual team, they're always so gracious for even the littlest of things, right? So I think it's just building that connection and also sharing about yourself, right? Like, hey, this is my dog and this is my cat and this is my kids. And then they usually show you their kids. And it's just about, I find, at least with the Filipino team, like, it's almost like they need permission. They see things the way I would like things in America to go, a little bit more formal, structured. So the second you say it's like okay to show pictures of our kids, now we're doing it. But it wouldn't be organic, I think, for them to show that kind of side of them without permission.
That's amazing. I mean, you're basically saying exactly what I say. I just don't understand sometimes how anybody leading an agency, whether the employees are virtual or they're live, how they don't have some sort of established cadence of a one-on-one, and there's no way to track their accountability or their, like you said, do a wellness check, make sure they're motivated, make sure they're still bought in. Michael's got a good question. What are some key metrics that you look for to measure productivity? And he's got in CSRs, but like what's a thing that like if some of you got a question about productivity, you go right to
Yeah.
2 or 3 things to know right out of the gate look, all metrics are interpretable,
Yeah.
right? But what are a
Yeah.
couple key ones that you look at right out of the gate?
Yeah. So one of the first ones I like to look at is activity reports. Like, what is everybody doing? Because I like to know where we're focused, who's documenting, who's not. I look at overdue activity reports. What's the backlog? Now, a lot of times this is just going to tell me that they're not using the system correctly. So now we have to start getting people to get, garbage in, garbage spreads. I also look at Reagan best practices and say revenue per team member, and say, where are you tracking on that? Now, there's some exceptions that we have some really high growth agencies that are going to be, they're onboarding a lot of new team to keep up with growth. So there's some, don't look at that like do or die. Look at it like, am I trending in the right direction? Okay. I also look and see, like I had an agency I was just at in Florida, and their processes were so bloated that it was strangling their team. So what do I mean by that? They would literally 19,000 policies. They would check every policy renewal and put an activity in that the policy was paid. They didn't want to lean on notice of cancellations or anything like that. They wanted to manually confirm with an activity that every policy was paid. That is 19,000 times they would log activities in to say something was paid. But they were always doing it that way. That's all they knew. They didn't think that they could do it any other way. And I'm like, okay, or like everyone's attaching deck pages. I'm like, there's a little button in your management system that takes you to the carrier. And then I'll get that, well, it never works. And it uses the robo password and that's always broken. I'm like, well, let's fix it. Versus I had another agency that literally 43 weeks of a year, based on how long it would take, would be spent attaching deck pages. So basically, 80% of someone's time, they were paying a salary to attach a deck page that was in the carrier website. So I think you have to look at your own processes and procedures and say, are we strangling people? And are we doing things for our worst customers versus our best customers out of fear? And also, are we using the technology that is at our fingertips? Even if, like, I before this meeting, I heard that, oh, that doesn't work in AMS 360. I go, no, it hasn't worked for you because no one's committed to making it work. It does work. You guys just haven't gotten it to work for you yet. So we have to be very careful when people use words like that because it's BS, right? Like, Vertafore doesn't have a whole renewal manager that doesn't work and no one's using it. It means you've got to do the work to get it to work, right? So I hope that's helpful, Davey. I
Yeah.
know it's top of
Yeah,
the hour.
we're at time. What's the best way you want people to get a hold of you? You want to put your QR code? You want them to go to the
Bat
website?
signal.
Bat
Bat signal.
signal. Well, look, like the one of the greatest values that I think everybody can lean on with Kelly is that she will tell you things that you do not want to hear. And that sometimes is the thing that you need to hear the most. I think you can hear it in what she says in her presentation. Sometimes it's agency therapy, So this is all going to cost you $150. We'll be sending you an invoice through Virtual Intelligence for Kelly's services. But seriously, Kelly, thank you. I think everybody knows you, knows about you, has worked with you at some point. Every once in a while, we do need Kelly to come in and preach and tell us the truth and show us the love, because this is really where the love starts. Is you got to love yourself, and you got to have somebody tell you the truth. And so, Kelly, you've certainly done that today. Thank you all for attending. Sometimes webinars are technical. You can find out a technical solution, and sometimes you can hear somebody as well respected as Kelly go, you know what, maybe this is the catalyst. Maybe this is the reason why I'm going to make sure that I have an open and honest relationship with my employees, my virtual employees, or that, we get better. And that's all we want to do is get better and help yourself. So love you all. I love you all as much as you will allow virtual intelligence to love you. Kelly loves you. It's all about love. Everyone have a wonderful Valentine's Day, and appreciate you all for coming. Kelly, you're the greatest. We would
Thank
have you
you
on every
for
month
having
if
me,
it made
guys.
sense, but you're one of the greatest and a true professional. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.